Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It's a joy to be with you today. Go to am950radio.com and stream, and also come to the Santita Jackson and Friends page on YouTube. I need you to stream me there and become my friend. That's where I can get friends. Not on Santita Jackson, but go to Santita Jackson and Friends. That's where I am taking on new friendships. Those are Facebook's rules, not mine. But meet my morning stars, who are now kind of afternoon stars until we move back to the mornings. They are on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. So everybody like and share. That's right. Thank you, everybody. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Hello, Carol. How you doing, my sister from another mister out there in the hills of Beverly? We've got a lot to talk about today. In the second hour, I'm going to be talking with Ray McGovern, Veterans Intelligence Professionals for Sanity. And of course, he was the head of the National Intelligence Briefing Council. He was in charge of briefing. He was the lead CIA analyst who briefed the president every day. And he did it throughout the 80s, but he did it from 63 for about 30 years. But in the 80s, he was the chief guy. He was in charge. And so when I want to know how the world works, Pastor Stephen Thurston, New Covenant Missionary Baptist Church, and Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds, and Attorney Darrell Jones, chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition, and Corey Hardiman, a young community advocate here in the city of Chicago. I always want to find out from him, how the world works, because he's been in the room. He's been in the room, and there's some things that he knows that movies are made about guys like him. So I want to know about World War III. I want to know about Gaza from him. I want to know what he thinks about these elections. There is now a growing body of work, everybody, that says that the resignation of Nixon is not what we thought it was about. The military-industrial complex, this is just for you to know, thought that he was going to govern as a hawk. And then he started making friends with the Chinese and the Russians, settling the Vietnam conflict. They said, oh, wait a minute, he's a problem. Does that sound familiar, anybody? Okay. And it was decided, according to many, many historians now, that he needed to be removed from office. I'm going to ask him about that, too. It's something for us to think about in these challenging times. But right now, we're going to talk about what's been leading in the headlines today, the polls. Every day you're hearing about new polls, and you should pay attention to them. They are snapshots in time. But the good thing about a poll, hey, Bernadette, is that you get a chance to get a snapshot in time. You get a chance to see where, at least the people who they're asking, where they are at any given time. It was interesting. I know Attorney Darrell Jones was at the Black Caucus weekend, but Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds and I caught up with each other. Even took a picture. Thank you for putting me on. That's right, in social media. And it was kind of interesting because Pastor Thurston, we've been in some places where it felt like the walls were shaking. There was so much excitement, right? You didn't get that sense this weekend, Darrell Jones. You didn't get that. And maybe, the newness of Obama in 2008, the newness of what Reverend Jackson was bringing in 84 and 88. Okay, there's part of that. But every now and then people come along and they do give you that frisson, if you will, of excitement. And what this NAACP poll is showing us, Corey Hardiman, is that it's not there. People are excited about Vice President Kamala Harris, but they need to be more excited. Indeed, Vice President Biden at the time, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton were polling far higher than she at this time in their candidacies when they were the Democratic nominees. So my question is, how is it that we can generate the excitement, or why are people not as excited as they could be? as they should be? Is it because we have an abbreviated campaign? Look, 2 months ago, she was not the candidate. 2 months ago, she was part of one of the most unpopular administrations in modern history, right? 2 months ago, everybody was saying, you know what? I don't know if I'm going to even vote. Now that has changed. Now you're watching voter registration really just explode. But not just on the Democratic side, y'all. It's exploding on the Republican side as well. Oh, yeah. It's not, Corey Hardiman, that I believe in bringing bad news. I believe in bringing you the news. And then you do the interpretation. And you cannot do an accurate interpretation unless you have all the what? Information. Okay, I'm a Jackson. I can't help it. But it's true. Come on now, come on. You can unmute your microphone, Pastor Thurston. It's true. It's true. So we need to have all the information so that we can look at the challenges that are before us and do something about them, right? So, and even if you do not, uh, if you're not excited about Vice President Harris's candidacy, let me know why. Know that on this platform, you know me well enough by now to know that you just need to tell us how you feel. All I ask is that you convey your feelings in a respectful way. Okay? So let's do that. But first, let's look at this Newsweek story. And this was leading on CNN, MSNBC, even Fox. Kamala Harris, according to this story, the headline is Kamala Harris gets potentially worrying sign from NAACP poll. Kamala Harris is facing potential challenges with Black voters despite overwhelming support from this demographic, according to this new poll from the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. The poll reveals both promising signs of enthusiasm and areas of concern for the vice president as she prepares for this 2024 election. The poll, conducted in collaboration with Hart Research, those of us who went to school in Washington remember Peter Hart Research. Every other student in college worked there. And you got a chance to see the questions that they would and would not ask. That having been said, in HIT Strategies, they surveyed Black voters across 12 priority states, and they found that 78% of respondents felt the same or more excitement about voting than when Barack Obama first ran in 2008. If elected, Harris will, of course, become the first Black woman, the first woman of color to be president, and she will be second after Obama to be the Black person to serve as president. Of that group, 56% said they were even more enthusiastic about voting than in 2024. And so, despite the enthusiasm, gender and generational disparities emerge as potential challenges for Kamala Harris. So, you've got race, you've got gender, you've got generational disparities, and you've got the great unspoken. Many people still question how closely she identifies to her Black ancestry. Even though, do you really think she ought to reject her mama? I mean, come on, everybody, really? But let's talk about that. Karen Lene said actually 45 was the most unpopular president. I don't know, because you know what? The numbers just don't bear that out, Karen Lene, because he got 12 million more votes in 2020 than he got in 2016. So something else was going on, okay? So, I mean, and the thing is, I traffic in facts, not in feelings. I keep my feelings to myself, or I'll share them with you. What we're trying to do is not fix the blame, we're trying to fix the problem. She has a problem, and we're trying to fix it. And you don't fix it by turning your back on it. You don't fix it by talking down to people who say that they don't trust her, they don't know her, they're not feeling her. We've got to stop doing that. Shantae says, folks don't trust her. Okay, I want you to tell me what you think. Tell me what you think, Carol. Tell me what you think, Bernadette. And let's talk about it. Robert Williams, shalom to you, my sweet. But let's talk about it, because this poll, one of the things that we saw, that among younger Black voters aged 18 to 49, her numbers dropped. Just 56% are backing her candidacy. 1 in 4 Black men are today saying that they're going to vote for President Trump. And a fair amount of Black women are too. Maybe not 1 in 4, but they are. And we're living in a time, what's interesting about that is that we're living in a time in which the duopoly, if you will, has been broken. The two-party system that, as we have known it, it's not the same. Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds. I mean, people are much more comfortable being independent. They're declaring themselves thusly, and they're voting that way. So the world that we have known, hey, Paula, how you doing, sweetie? The world that we have known is not the world that we know, particularly given how young people are feeling. Young people are pushing on Gaza. They have completely flipped the script on the Middle East. They're driving that. The migrant crisis, if you just shut your eyes and listen to the people of Springfield, Ohio, it sounds like you're in Inglewood in Chicago. They're saying you pull these people into our community, and they're a middle class community, but they're a working class community, which means they are a paycheck away from poverty. They said they're stressing and stretching our resources. We cannot afford this. Does that sound familiar, everybody? Black folks got white problems. Maybe it's because they're all our problems. How about that? So, Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds, what do you make of this NAACP poll that all people are saying that I don't feel comfortable with those numbers, because we do know that if a Black candidate is going to make it, they've got to have well north of 95% support. I mean, Black people have to be so into you. And in fact, in 2008, we over-indexed, and you know this, Daryl, better than anyone. We over-indexed in the vote. I mean, we really outvoted our numbers because we were all going to get this man into the White House, period. So what do you make of these numbers now at this time? Because we're not even 60 days out. What are you seeing? Does this poll sound credible to you?
Absolutely. Santita, let me just start off by saying thank you for addressing this very important, real topic. This is not a outlier. First of all, full disclosure, I'm a national board member for the NACP. This is a legitimate poll. This poll is credible. This isn't a poll that was cherry picked. It is what it is. And I think this poll reflects the reality that a lot of Democrats don't want to pay attention to. They don't want to own up to it. The Democrat Party has been so used to taking the Black vote for granted. Black men, and I'm a Black man, I'm a member of the 100 Black Men of America. I'm chair of the Texas Legislative Black Caucus. I'm a member of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity. So I'm plugged into a lot of brothers, right?
So you're a real Black man.
I'm a real Black man, right?
An alpha man.
And I embrace my Blackness.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you, Santita, I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of brothers over the years, not just these brothers that I just talked about in these organizations, but I go to a Black barbershop. I go to a Black car wash. I intentionally make sure that I'm plugged into the brothers that aren't in the fraternity, that didn't go to the HBCU that I went to. So when I talk to them, I'm hearing a different conversation. And the conversation that I'm hearing from them reflects the data that came out of this poll. And that is that they felt let down. They felt betrayed. They felt taken advantage of. And it was more pronounced under President Biden. But Kamala Harris is getting some of the spillover from the distrust, because there hasn't been, they want to hear about reparations, and we haven't heard that come out of her mouth. They were biggest supporters of our Muslim brothers and calling for a ceasefire, and we haven't heard much from Kamala Harris on that. So I do understand their frustration. I disagree with the notion of supporting Trump. Now, let me just break it down. Black women overwhelmingly support Kamala. It's the brothers that we have seen a dip. And I've had conversations with others including the NAACP president, about this particular issue before this poll came out. Just being in the streets is I've seen it. And until we address it head on with trusted messengers and look for solutions, like meet people where they are, not try to say, well, hey, she's the lesser of. They ain't hearing that. They ain't hearing where our forefathers fought. They ain't hearing that. You have to make it plain and real. And we need to come to them with meat and potato issues. When are we going to have meaningful discussions on reparations? When are we going to have meaningful discussions on actually passing the George Floyd Policing Act? When are we going to have real discussions about raising the national minimum wage? When are we going to have real discussions about making Black Lives Matter, right? So these are the discussions that the brothers are waiting on, and they felt that the Democratic Party has taken their vote for granted, that they bring resources to other communities, and then they just say, well, go vote, right? Y'all, we have a church rally, and we hear from the pastors, and we hear from the NAACP and Transformative Justice Coalition, and y'all show up because our ancestors fought for it, y'all. We have to do it. That conversation isn't working. So we have to meet people where they are. We can't shame them into voting anymore. When I was with a young brother, and he was like, what have they done for me? You know, I want to hear, what are they doing for the brothers in the hood? You know, and so we need to address the issue, and we need to put real resources into the Black media, and that's something the Democratic Party has been reluctant to do. We keep giving all this money to the white folks, the white consultants, and then they supposed to tell the Black candidates what Black people are thinking. They don't know what we're thinking. You got Black folks that are qualified. You got Black posters. You got Black consultants. Why are you not hiring them? Why are you not funding the NMPA? Why are you not funding Black radio and media? So those are the issues that our party and Kamala Harris is going to have to address in a short order if she wants to win this election. She's not going to be able to win it without brothers coming back home and voting in the numbers that they did to support Barack Obama. So I'm hopeful that they're going to take this poll seriously. I'm glad this poll is out there so that they can meet it head on, because the stakes are too high, and we can't afford a Project 2025 on our watch. We can't afford 4 years of Donald Trump on our watch. We can't go back to voter suppression and more Jim Crow legislation. But if we don't pay attention to it and we don't address it, Santita, that's what we're going to have.
Well, you know, Corey, you are nodding your head vigorously, as is Reverend Thurston. But let me start with you, Corey. You're new to the show.
Yes.
And you are also of another demographic. I'll put that charitably for all of us here.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Representative Reynolds with his statements that he said. And I'm just thinking about, in the aspect, as an educator, as someone that worked with youth, as someone that is a younger generation, 33-year-old Black man living in Chicago, and just thinking about everything that impacts us on the local level. And I feel like Madam Vice President Harris is getting backlash from all of that. It's not just from a federal level. It's from federal, state, and local level. You get up every morning, you walk outside of your house, depending on the community you live in, it's not okay. And so now every 4 years, it comes around to, oh, we need to do this. We need to do this for the Democratic Party. Now the question is, what has the Democratic Party done for us recently? Yes, history is phenomenal. I am a fan of history. I know that people die to vote. We know that. But a young person living in Roseland and in Inglewood, they kind of care less about that right about now, because yes, we are dying too. And it's not for a vote. It's simply because I may be standing on the bus stop on my way to school as a proud graduate of 2 public schools here in Chicago. I know standing on a bus stop, sometimes you may get hit by a bullet that's not even meant for you. So when we think about this and we're thinking about strategies and we're thinking about ways, I go back to Rep Reynolds. There are individuals who are qualified to give advice to our local officials, to our federal officials, and our state level officials. But when we look in those rooms, when we go to the events that's put together for the people that look like us, that want the black vote, we simply see those of another persuasion that don't look like us telling us this is what we need you to do. We don't have us in there saying this is how we strategize. And Ms. Jackson, you know this from yourself, from your father being a civil rights leader. When they was in the South, it was black people training black people to say, this is how we deal with nonviolence. And then you did have some white people that were their allies who came in the room to join them, but was trained by people that look like us.
Well, not wait, but let me just tell you, because I want us to really put a fine point on that. Because looking like us is one thing, thinking like us is something else.
Totally different.
We got a lot of black faces in high places. We got it. I think we, with all due respect, my son, we have to get away from that, because the overseer looked like us on the plantation, but he certainly did not think like us. You see what I mean? He didn't think
Absolutely.
like us in the fields, right?
And
So
and
you got some people who don't look like us, who identify with us. In 2008, when you had Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama on the same debate stage, the only person who gave his full-throated support to reparations was Congressman Dennis Kucinich from Cleveland, Ohio. Someone who grew up poor, I think he's one of 8 or 9 kids, and off and on, he and his parents lived in a car almost all of his life. He went to Catholic school. He said they had to give us clothes and food because we had nothing. And what I love about Dennis Kucinich is that he's never forgotten about it. And you know, some of us, and I want you to continue, Mr. Hardiman, but some of us get a 9:15 and we forget all about what we have been through.
Oh, absolutely. And that's
You know?
why I'm a strong advocate for HBCUs. And when people say, oh, black universities don't give you this, oh, yes, it give you exactly what you just explained.
Mm-hmm.
Because I grew up in Roseland and my counterparts grew up in a highly affluent suburban area who happened to be my roommate in school. So they didn't go through what I went through. Just because you black doesn't necessarily mean that you also come through the same struggles as the next black person.
Well, say not through poverty, but I
Mhm.
promise you, these black kids who go, say, to these prep schools,
they still facing racism.
Blackness is it.
Black, black.
We have different castes. We have different classes, but we're in the same caste.
Absolutely. And some of our folk is in a state now where they feel like our Madam VP who's running for president is in a different caste and not in a different class and not in their class. And they're struggling to see that how she will help us and benefit in that way. So our work, and to Reynolds' point, our work is to get into the rooms to make sure that she does hold her accountable at that level and say that you have to have it from the ground level all the way up to the White House, and ensuring that people, black people and people of color and all races, because it's not one of the things I realized as going through school and being involved with a lot of organization. I was blessed as a Bill and Melinda Gates scholar. And it was in that room because I grew up in a predominantly black neighborhood, went to predominantly black schools. And so when I walked in that room and I met a young man who was Hispanic, who grew up in Idaho with a very similar background to mine. And he's a Hispanic guy that struggled through school and things like that. But we came together through an organization by a white man named Bill Gates, who paid for us to go to school all the way up into our doctorate, debt free. And so when you see that and you are able to get into those rooms with other people and you see the struggles of those different creeds coming together and working together to say that we have to advocate and we have to give back to our people. One of the things we must push is opening the door and listening. I'm tired of hearing about Project 2025. That shows me that they have a plan, but do we?
Dr. Benjamin Elijah Mays would be so proud of you right now. About to make me bust wide open. Okay, another Morehouse man, someone who he doesn't look like it, but he actually is your elder.
Just by a couple of years.
I knew I was gonna get it.
Don't push me too far.
Oh man, but he is a preaching machine. Indeed, one of the most profound theologians and counselors and really sociologists of our time. I rib him a lot because he's like my baby brother. I've known him since before he was born. So yeah, that dates me. I don't care. But I've watched him evolve, but I also know that you talk to thousands of people every week.
Sure.
And I want to know what you're hearing, what you're thinking, because you're in Los Angeles today. I mean, you're traveling all the time. So you're listening to people, and you have particular, as you know, when I brought Mr. Hardiman on, he said, "Oh no, I know him from Salem." I mean, you got a following of young people. So I mean, talk to me. What I mean, did this poll sound credible to you? And what are you hearing?
Credible and legitimate. I'm reminded of when President Obama ran for office. He and my father had a relationship. My dad was on the road preaching across the country 50 weeks out of the year. Revival for preachers was big back then. President Obama and his team met with my father, gave him speaking points about his agenda. My father was able to weave those speaking points into his preaching presentations as he traveled across the country. As I consider our current context, I don't have an agenda to talk about concerning Vice President Harris. I support her. I want to push her, but she has not made it plain and clear and palatable, the specifics of her agenda. And I think that's what Corey was sharing and Rep Reynolds. Our people on the streets don't see how this impacts them in a specific, direct manner and how supporting her is going to change her life. We also add in the patriarchy component when we deal with Black men. I hope that I don't get you in trouble by saying this, but a lot of Black men don't like women. They like vagina. They don't like women. And that impacts how we engage with a woman running for the most powerful position in the world. And so we add that element in, we add the element in that's already been stated of not being clear on what the points are, how it's going to directly benefit me. And so we see now personality taking precedent over policy because there's something in us that's drawn to the personality of him. And even though his policy is going to hurt us, harm us, damage us, what do we have for people who aren't getting what they need? Hey, let me try something else. And so I think those components are critical components that the Democratic Party needs to take into consideration and stop waiting, as Corey mentioned, every 4 years to get in the game and talk about what we need to do. This has to be a consistent, ongoing piece that they work towards as the other side is playing the game 50 years down the road.
Well, you know, and our Black leaders, you know, stay right with me for a hot second, Reverend Thurston, because you saw when you came out of school, Reverend Jackson wanted you to come and work for him.
Maybe.
That's true. He did make you do it. Didn't want my father to sound like a tyrant, but you know, it bears saying publicly that is your history.
Yes.
Your grandfather and Dr. King were very, very close. Many people don't realize that in Dr. King's lifetime, his popularity took a nosedive.
Yes.
I mean, people felt uncomfortable with him anyway because he was in church speaking this liberation theology. So, I mean, it broke up the National Baptist Convention, everybody. Yes. And so your grandfather and some other progressive preachers created the Progressive Baptist Convention because you all got thrown out of the National Baptist. No. And now it's got more than 2 million members, and your father became president of it. But I mean, that's a very real thing.
Yeah.
And so, but you know, when you talk about the talking points, many people are saying, wait a minute, reparations, and don't mush my reparations in with everybody else. Black people have particular needs.
Yep.
The migrant crisis, even though, as I've talked about the TENT program for refugees, Corey Hardiman, I don't know if you've heard about it. It is more than 400 corporations which have come together under one tent to hire laborers from Venezuela, from all of these countries where everybody, well, you know, that are resource rich but cash poor. And so everybody mysteriously is having to run away. Yeah, because our corporations are trying, and our intelligence agencies are are conducting, or they're trying to conduct a coup in Venezuela right now because we want their oil. Don't you know that's our oil underneath their feet? How else does a population, how else do you lose 3 million people? That's insane. Nobody's trying to run. That's people, these people are running away from home. They're not running to America. So these are the things that she would have to speak to, in your talking points, because you are talking to Black people, and Black folks would come to you. I know, because my father's a preacher too, and we're both PKs. How people come to our fathers after they have finished preaching, Daryl, and they say, now you know what you need to talk about the next time? Oh, don't think your congregation is not going to pull you up. Yeah, can I get an amen, Pastor Thurston?
Amen.
I mean, so what do your congregants want to hear discussed?
Yeah, the Gaza is a major piece. What's happening there, and again, as Rep. Reynolds spoke to, issues like reparations and how economic policy is going to bring back a Black middle class, so that we can buy, we can have. They're not hearing any of that language, any of that conversation in a palatable way. They hear word salads, but they don't hear entrees being presented.
Well, Daryl Jones, your thoughts?
Well, Santita, we're 45, 46 days away from an election. Some states have already got their absentee ballots that have been mailed out, and people are starting to respond. So right now, I think that where we are in terms of asking Vice President Harris to adjust or change any shift, I don't know if that's actually a positive place to be. I think that when I listen to all that's being said and all that's being presented, there are a couple of things that come to mind. And part is what you opened up with, Santita, when you said that, there really was not any type of primary that Vice President Harris went through. So what she ended up doing was inheriting whatever numbers and situation President Biden had in place at the time that he decided not to run, however you want to put it, or pushed out from running, whatever analogy you want to use, and she then takes the throne. And I think that the true measure has to begin at the point that she is handed the baton. And what do the numbers then do? Are the numbers going down? Are the numbers staying the same? Are the numbers increasing? And I suspect that those numbers are increasing. While it is true that the African-American community stood behind President Biden while we were assuming that he was going to be the nominee, percentage-wise, the numbers were really good, but the actual, the gross number decreased, and that's what we started to see was the fewer people that were voting, but the higher percentage of the African-American community. So that's what she inherits when she's handed the baton. And the question is, has she advanced it? What has she done to increase it? And I think, and I believe that clearly with the African-American woman voter, right? You've seen a surge, and that's actually increasing. And she's continued to push on that. People oftentimes, and it always gets me because folks start looking at the Black men and start saying, well, the Black men are the problem. The Black men are the reason that they don't have a woman governor in Georgia, and then, blah, 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 and all this with the Black men. Well, the one thing that folks tend to forget is that the second most reliable voter in the Democratic Party is the Black man, followed only because of the Black woman who's top. So those are your two top demographics. With the last 45 days, 46 days that's left in this election cycle for Vice President Harris, I don't know that she can change a message. She can put a message out that's going to change the direction of African-American men. Nor do I believe that African-American men are as committed to the Trump 25% to the Trump vote as the numbers indicate. I just don't believe that. That's not what I'm hearing when I'm going out, when I'm in the streets. I'm not hearing that. I am hearing the disillusionment with regards to what had happened from the prior administration, and that they feel as though they were played. But I don't see that showing itself as support for President Trump, who's talking about Haitians eating animals, who did everything negative that you can imagine, I think, for the African American community. Now, interestingly, one of the things that Pastor Thurston pushed on was the economic policy piece in the African American community. And I think that one of the things that we did hear from Vice President Harris is the economic opportunity package that she's pushing out, and how that will impact and lift up the African American family as a whole, Black men as well as Black women, as well as, I guess, the brown community. So those pieces, I think, are certainly in play. What's going to be interesting these last 45 days, and actually it's probably a little less than that, because once people, you have a smaller percentage that actually vote on election day, and because of all of the pre-election early voting that goes on, is what impact, what change can she make? How can she pull in more Black men? And will Black men go into the polling place and actually vote against her or not show up at all? I think those are the big questions that have to be answered.
So, I mean, do you think, some people do give pushback on these numbers that consistently, it would be, I think, Daryl, it's the consistency of Trump support is something that I cannot ignore. Nor can I ignore, no pun, my goodness, the fact that he increased his voting totals by 12 million votes in 4 years. That's a whole lot of steam that he was able to build. And even with all the hits he's taken, he has not gotten weaker. He has gotten stronger. And I beg to differ. Because I'm just trying to listen to folks, and I will let them know I'm not coming from a place of judgment with you. I want to know. I host radio, I'm on television. I want to know what you're thinking, so that when I'm on these platforms, I can adequately convey what you're feeling. Because I don't just get on television or get on the radio to talk, to hear myself talk. No, I'm like, wait a minute. And that, Stephen, I'm like, I wouldn't do this if that's what I don't want to do. I don't want to have that kind of show, and I don't want to have that kind of presence on television. My thing is, when I get there, I'm saying, in my community, this is what I'm hearing. In the hopes, like Andrew Wyatt, who has been Bill Cosby's crisis manager, he said someone was listening to the show and they called him after they heard him on my show. And they said, hey, I need you to be on this show, and I need you to talk about X, Y, and Z. You don't know who's listening. All the time. And of course, I want to remind people that every Tuesday on WOL in Washington, D.C., you can catch Daryl Jones and attorney Barbara Arnwine talking some of the most sense about the vote at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time, WOL in D.C. So please, and you can get that anywhere. So WOL, everybody, please go there. And of course, Pastor Stephen Thurston is on Facebook Live when?
Fridays at 3 p.m.
Central Standard Time.
Central Standard Time, yes.
Absolutely. And of course, we can see you on Sundays.
9 a.m. Central Standard Time.
On?
The Cove. THECOV. That's on Facebook and YouTube.
Amen. You don't want to miss it, because like I said, preaching machine, true anointing. I'm just wondering, I don't want us to become overconfident, Daryl, because I'm not in the DMV. And the DC, Maryland, Virginia area is government. It's also an affluent area for the most part. And, because people have stable government jobs and all of that and you got the military there and all of that. I'm in Chicago. It's a different deal. And I go through a whole lot of other places, and the thing is, you travel everywhere too. I am quite frankly seeing more and more, not just Black men, because Black men are not the problem. Black men are trying to fix the problem. Black men are saying, wait a minute, you're not helping me. And say, I'm tired of seeing black men get beat up, Corey Hardiman, for all kinds of reasons. And I'm tired of seeing that. Because Black men are not your problem. I didn't do Gaza. Biden did that. And Netanyahu. And we kept trying to tell Biden, you can fix this. You'd better fix this. If you don't fix this, you ain't gonna win in November. And I think they misjudge how deeply this resonates with people. And in the Black community, it does. I mean, people are feeling some kind of ways. Corey, talk to me. I mean, what? I mean, are you? Do you think that this is? I mean, where should? How can she show up her support? Where is she vulnerable?
I definitely feel like she's vulnerable in the spaces that we mentioned earlier around, especially when it comes to just everyday people. I feel like the Democrats have their pocket of people that they feel like, oh, as long as we got them, they'll navigate the rest. But we ready to see I actually attended the DNC. I was there the night that former President Barack and former First Lady Michelle Obama spoke. And just being in the presence of it, being there listening, I heard Project 2025 way too much.
What made you say, please stop talking about that?
Well, what made me say that is right now we looking at what are you all going to do? We know Donald tell us every time he get up, every time he's on social media, he's on Twitter, Instagram, himself, my cousins who are Trump supporters, they telling us every day what their plan is. However, on the end of the Democratic Party, it's a lot of focus on what will happen if Donald Trump is reelected.
May I add a sound effect? Oh. I mean, as if we are people who did not survive slavery.
Yes.
You can't frighten me anymore. Everything that could happen to a human being in the history of humankind has happened to Black people on American soil. I'm so over it. I just, no, I mean, and I'm not making fun. I'm not making light of anything, Daryl and Pastor Thurston and Representative Reynolds. I mean, I'm not. I'm just saying, don't come to me with that.
And I'll just add to that by saying that my generation after me, what they're looking for is a real plan. They just want to know, please let us know, what is the plan? How from the federal level you would impact our state level and our local level. We know what Donald Trump is planning to do. It's bolded. He say he has nothing to do with Project 2025, but if you listen to his plan, it correlates directly with Project 2025, which tell us it has a lot to do with it. But what is our project? What do we plan to do?
Somebody want to jump in on that? I mean, because that's not what I'm hearing.
Yeah,
Representative Reynolds?
I think that,
Wait a minute, because they're not telling you are in the state capitol. People, the Democrats are not. We lost more than 1,000 seats during the Obama years. We lost state capitals. We lost governorships. We lost. No one's talking about regaining that. You got a $100 million fund to take out Black progressives. Did you come up with $100 million? Y'all came up with hundreds of millions of dollars to help Kamala, and you should. You mean to tell me you can't come up with $20 million to save Cori Bush? To save Jamal Bowman? You just flush them down the toilet. You raise up some conservative. You're going to pay Hill Harper $20 million so that he can run against, so he won't become senator. No, run against Rashida. Really? Oh, yeah, I'm feeling some kind of way about that.
And Santita, I think that it's important always to be transparent, to be open. Like some people, a frustration that I have, and this is where I get in trouble at, is that I say the quiet part out loud. Like I'm a proud Democrat, and I'm definitely not voting for Trump or not supporting Trump. But that doesn't mean I can't speak the truth about what is wrong with the Democratic Party, right? That doesn't mean that I'm saying, oh, don't vote Democrat. I'm saying we have some issues that need to be rectified. And so to act like they don't exist is to exacerbate the problem, right? And so I think that we should, and I've expressed this in Texas, like y'all are taking Black folks for granted and we're going to lose Black folks to the Democratic Party. That doesn't mean that they're going to vote Republican. That means they may not vote at all. there's a lot of voter apathy. There's a lot of undervotes. There's a lot of people saying, what's the...
Stay right there.
Yeah.
Republicans established community centers in Black and brown areas, Daryl, Stephen, Corey. When I was at Howard in the 80s, yes, I'm dating myself, but I'm glad I've lived all these years. They had something called noonday prayer because they came at us through the church, the conservative right-wingers who were cloaked as Christians. Yeah, and I'm yeah, come on, Stephen, I know what's up. That they actively recruit, and guess what? They also will send you to school. Republicans give money, Daryl. Black Democrats are always scrounging around for some money. And wait a minute, the Obama budget did not include Black radio and Black TV. It did not. And to not say that is criminal because it's happening again. How many Black-owned radio stations do you know of now? We don't have Ebony and Jet anymore. I mean, think about that. What are we supposed to do? I mean, that is not going to work. And I know she has got so many people coming at her who are trying to tell her to do this, that, and the other. All I'm saying is if we don't advocate for what it is that we need, we're not going to get anything. And the only way that you get something is to advocate. Which means I'm trying, because I want her to win. I just know that with this formula, with this poll from the NAACP, they're letting us know for the NAACP, and you are a national board member, they're going like this anytime, because they could have kept this hidden. They could have kept it to themselves, given it to the campaign, and gone on about it. They said, no. We're trying to let the community know we got a problem. That's why the NAACP did this. They were not trying to hurt her. They're trying to help.
That's right. I totally agree with that, Santita. And that's all I'm saying is we're trying to fix the problem, right? The old saying from experts is that the first step toward recovery is to admit that you have a problem. If you don't admit that you have a problem, then you're never going to address a solution. And so, yes, these are real issues that need to be addressed. They're systemic. They're not going to solve themselves. We have to be intentional about it. And I think that they know that this is a problem. They knew this before this NAACP poll. And this is something that it was even worse, like I said, with Biden as the nominee. Biden was going to lose, period. Okay, I'm just going to come out and say it. Many Black folks were going to stay home, and many more were going to vote for Trump. So at least now there is a fighting chance for Kamala if she turns this around. But it's not just going to happen just because we ignore it and it pretends it doesn't exist. There is a real problem. It's not as bad as it was for Biden, but she has work to do and ground to cover. But the good news is that she has a record of, the money is ridiculous, the amount of money she's raised. There's no excuse for not making those investments in the Black community. There's no excuse. They can't say, well, we don't have the resources.
But you know what she's being told? She's being told by other advisors, you've got this on lock. You went to Howard. You're an AKA. Because the sad part is, look, she met with the uncommitted group in Michigan. Now, when she got out and in public, was she a little ham-fisted about that? Yeah, that shows you the lack of experience that she has in dealing with the public at large. Okay? But I think she's a quick study. I think she can get that. But Josh Shapiro, she heard the Democratic base. She will listen to you. And all I'm saying is we have to be as strong in our advocacy as everybody else is in theirs. If we are not strong in and we have to be unapologetic and say, wait a minute, this is what we need. And you're not going to get my vote until you promise, and I'm going to make you come through on the promise. See, we get too afraid. Like, they won't like me anymore. Forget liking me. You need to respect me, and that's it. Everything else can flow from that. But she as much as we're talking, and we're talking right now, other people are sitting in the room and they're pressing her.
Frederick Douglass said it the best, that power concedes nothing without demand. It never has and it never will. So if we don't demand it, we ain't gonna get it. Period. You know, and that there at some point we have to get away from just saying minority and say black or African American, because the black interest is being left behind. In Texas, they were catering to the Hispanics that were woefully undervoting, and we've been the most reliable. They were taking us for granted, and they will continue to take us for granted until we demand, where's the black consultants? Where are they at? We want to see them. That's what I've done as chair of the Legislative Black Caucus.
Thank you.
And guess what? That's forced them to have to come to the table to say, okay, we're going to get back to you. Guess what? Next time they talk to me, they had some black consultants, but that never would happen if I didn't raise that issue and demand to see where the black consultants at. I don't see them. I haven't seen them. Where are they at? You know,
that's part of your job.
Yeah.
I mean,
so part of my black job is to make sure that I'm advocating to make sure that other black folks. And Santita, here's the other issue. We got too many black folks that they say, well, hey, they in the room, so they fine. They don't care about nobody else. We got too many Clarence Thomases in our own ranks that say, hey, I got there on someone else's back. They throw the ladder down so no one else comes up because they want to be the only one, right? They want to be the only token Negro, so you can say, well, I'm the only one. I don't want to be the only one. I'm tired of being the first and only. I want to see more of my people at the table eating, right? Not crumbs that are left over, but a sizable piece of the big pie, right? That's all we're asking for is our fair share. That's why they're ending DEI programs, because they don't want to hear about diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? And so if we aren't advocating, if we aren't demanding it, then it ain't gonna happen. Period. And that comes from Kamala Harris. She has to say, boom, 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 right? We want to hear it from her. We know you can't be just the black president, but we do want you to embrace a black agenda that includes the stuff that we're asking for.
Yeah, I want you to be my president, though.
Right.
Since I'm an American and I have needs, meet them. That's all. I'm not going to apologize for that. While you sitting up here swaying and whatnot with me in church, you better come on with it.
But Santita, I think that one of the best examples of what Representative Reynolds.
I'm gonna have 1 minute for everybody. We can talk about this forever, but go on.
One of the best examples of what Representative Reynolds is laying out is when we talk about Marion Barry in D.C. He came in with a black agenda. He was going to be certain that black people got contracts, that they got jobs, that they were represented in government, and he was unapologetic about it. And that was the position that he's taken. So we need to see that type of position that comes out. But let me just share this in the last 15, 20 seconds that I have for my time. And in addition to everything else that we've laid out with the challenges that Vice President Harris is facing, I'm on a plane tomorrow morning, 5 a.m. down to Jacksonville, Florida. Why? Because voter suppression is occurring there, and it's happening in the African-American community. They have moved some 35% of the inactive voters have come out of the black community in Jacksonville, Florida. So this is another, barrier that we're going to have to deal with during this election cycle. So it's not just, trying to encourage the black men to vote, trying to encourage the black community to vote, but then it's the challenge of once you got them there to vote, their vote being able to be cast and then being counted. There's a lot that we're facing right now, Santita.
Which is why President Biden needed to sign an executive order on voting rights. It will hurt the Democrats if you don't do that. I'm no genius. It's just, come on now, what? Corey Hardiman, you got 1 minute, young man, but this is not the last time you're going to be here. Watch your text. I'm going to reach out to you tonight.
Definitely. I do want to thank you for allowing me to be on here tonight, but I'm glad that we all come together. I did see some in the chat saying it's another bashing session. It's not a bashing session against Kamala Harris. It's more of a unity session of saying this is what we need to be heard. This is what needs to be heard. And this is how we could do this. And we can win this election in November, but everyone want their needs and concerns addressed. Don't backdoor our needs and concerns, but front door everybody else's. So let's bring us together and unite together. And black men, I am standing up and I will vote for Kamala Harris, but we also will hold her accountable while doing so.
As it just came across my screen that Uncommitted has declined to endorse Kamala Harris. She's got work to do. Pastor Stephen Thurston, last minute belongs to you.
I want to challenge us as we're challenging her to do our homework, do our due diligence, become knowledgeable about policy, so that spin game can't be played on us, and we'll know what to ask for and what to advocate for. Because I've been in the room too, and the opportunity was presented, and people didn't know what to say. And so I want to make sure that we do our work so that we're educated and equipped to push the right buttons at the right time.
Amen. They don't know what to say, and sometimes they're afraid to say.
Yeah.
Because we're the only people who are told that we need to apologize for advocating for ourselves.
Mhm.
Oh, we've got to stop doing that. My brother, who was congressman at the time, Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr., but you keep those titles forever, and I'm going to do that with him too. He was at North Carolina A&T with Pastor Jamal Bryant campaigning for then Senator Obama in 2008. And they were North Carolina A&T, his alma mater, my parents' alma mater, my sister's alma mater, my Congressman Jonathan Jackson's alma mater. We're in Aggie school, but I'm a Bison. Hello. That having been said, someone stood up in the audience and said, you know what? Yeah, I hear you, Jesse Jackson Jr., but you know you wouldn't be where you are were it not for your daddy. My brother stood there and he said, You know, the tragedy is we're the only people who are told to apologize, who feel that we need to apologize for having good daddies. Your grandmama, your granddaddy, your great grandmama, your great granddaddies, all of them deserve to be heard. We're their voices now. We're their voices. My great grandmama who couldn't read or write, I'm her voice. I've got to stand up for her. I've got to stand up for my great grandfather, my great great grandfather. I got to stand up for them. For the Black people, for the indigenous people. Yeah, for even that, Mr. Sizemore. My great grandfather, who was this Irishman who just came over here and decided to make a nice living and married a Black woman because he was fresh out of Ireland and they were at the bottom too. And thank you very much. Oh, I'm a product of all the rejects. And I ain't mad about it. But what I will not allow to be rejected are my demands. I don't have requests, I have demands. I have requirements. I've told you all many, many times the easy girl loses in the courtship game. Don't play. Have requirements. Yeah, I said it. Yeah, and I mean it. You know that. You've got to have requirements. You have to have red lines that people cannot cross. All you have to do is walk outside your door in any of our communities. You go on a reservation and see how they're starving there. Indigenous people have worse outcomes, health and economic outcomes than Black people in America. That's not right. It's not right. And we've got to stand up. The only way we can have this monkey on our back is because we're crouched over. Stand up and it will fall off. Now stand up for reparations. We deserve to be repaired and restored. I want my 40 acres and a mule. They've taken 90% of our Black farmland. It's not right. I want it back. Most Black people are northern refugees. I want my stuff back. I want Tulsa to be restored. I want all of that. And I'm not going to apologize. And I'm going to look you in your eye and you're going to tell me yes or no. And if you tell me no, well, we're going to have a problem. I know that if we pressure Kamala Harris, you have a better chance, I think, of getting what you need from her.
Mhm.
But I know any president can be pressured, y'all. So don't let anyone fearmonger you into anything, because no matter who gets in, we got to work. Because no matter who's gotten in, we have not gotten our fair share. Or we have only gotten what we've gotten when we push. LBJ was being pushed in the streets, from the streets, not from the suites. Nobody walked into his office and got cute. You had people in the streets and people were dying. Oh no, they were getting killed. So come on, everybody. Let's do what we need to do. Black people are looking at negative wealth by 2085. It will take us 500 years to achieve economic equity. I don't have 500 years, and you don't either. Let's get it right, everybody. Let's talk with Ray McGovern about how the world really works on the Santita Jackson Show in just a few minutes.